I'm going on a group bike ride with Two Bikes. Two Bikes is a bike shop in Knoxville and Chattanooga. It's 6 p.m. on a Friday night. And this is like a slower group ride. We'll see what the turnout is, maybe like 20, 25 people. I'm here at Two Bikes in Knoxville, Tennessee. Two Bikes is a bike shop with a location here in Knoxville and a brand new location in Chattanooga. Two Bikes is unique. Its idea is awesome. It takes donated bicycles, tears them apart, and builds better bikes out of it. And for every bike they sell, they also donate one as well. And then they hire kids in the community to work at the shops. There's so much intention and design behind how they build out the two spaces. I remember back when Two Bikes was just an idea, and it's really cool to see what it's become. You know, the Knoxville location's been here for 3 years now. The Chattanooga location's about to open, and while the two shops have a similar aesthetic, they're also very, very different as well. And they cater to different cyclists. Like Knoxville here is very, very hilly. Mountain biking is huge here. And in Chattanooga, it's a lot more flat. I think one thing that really attracts me to Two Bikes is that it's all about fun. Bicycles are an amazing tool to just enjoy the day with your friends and see a city, a new place that you've never been to, or maybe even parts of your own town that are unexplored to you yet. So while I do love to take my bike and go do 30 miles and get in a really good workout, I also sometimes just like to cruise around aimlessly and meet up with, do a group ride here, like a slow group ride, meet some new people in Knoxville. I have a separate video where Mitchell gives me a tour of the new Chattanooga bike shop. So check that out as well.
All right, I'm locked in.
We're here. We're back. Take 3.
I'm here, I'm back.
Dude, okay. Mitchell,
Yeah.
tell me about Two Bikes, man.
Yeah, it's a bike shop we built for the people. We're a nonprofit bike shop. We take donated bikes, we refurbish them. Half of them we sell as like affordable transportation. So it's like less than half of the cost of a bike from basically any other bike shop. And then the other half, we partner with local nonprofits and distribute them equitably into the community. So like there's a local organization called the Chattanooga Football Club Foundation, right? That work with all of these kind of first generation immigrants in the community that play like soccer. There's like a huge Guatemalan population in Chattanooga.
Cool.
But because a lot of them are non-legal citizens, it's really hard to get around. We have terrible public transportation in the city. And you can't get a driver's license as a non-legal citizen. So what we do is we refurbish these bikes that are great for commuting, donate them to the Chattanooga Football Club Foundation, and they distribute them to the people that play soccer. So they can, get to the pitch, I think is what it's called.
I think you're correct.
Yeah, I feel confident, but yeah, so that's what we do. That's one of our 3 programs. Mm-hmm. We also host a program called Community Rides, where we lead kind of fun, inclusive bike rides that are like the opposite of like what you're imagining. So we take big groups of people, oftentimes 50 to 100 people, and we kind of parade people through the streets. One, as a way to kind of draw attention to the need for cycling infrastructure, but also just as a way to work on community building and get people outside, having fun, feeling more comfortable on their bike and doing fun stuff. So a lot of our rides are not like a like a 3-hour Sufferfest. Like instead, we'll go somewhere to go do something. So we have a ride that we call the sellout series. So we'll all ride to a local business and all buy something, kind of with the idea of like, we're gonna try and sell them out. So we did a sellout ride to the Book and Cover, a local bookstore, and the next one's to the local record store called Yellow Racket that we're friends with.
And that's just one of multiple different types of rides that you have.
Yeah.
So I guess let's back up real quick. The Chattanooga bike shop's brand new.
Yeah.
The Knoxville bike shop is what, 3 years old now at this point?
Yeah, in Chattanooga, we're BC era. We haven't opened yet.
Yeah. BC era, yeah. So you just explained the vision with the Chattanooga shop.
Totally.
Is that similar to Knoxville set up in that way?
Yeah. So like, I've been working on this kind of stuff like my whole life. I started hanging out in local bike shops and volunteering at local bike co-ops when I was like 15, so like 17 years ago. And this is like very much the evolved version of like what I think is best practice for bicycle nonprofits. So in Knoxville, we run the community rides program. We have a youth workforce development program where we provide jobs for local underserved high schoolers, and the Pedal It Forward program where we recycle bikes.
So you spent many years doing longer bicycle trips, right? Like you rode across the country, you hiked the Appalachian Trail, sort of these adventure trips.
Totally.
Were you working in bike shops around the same time as well? So you were in and out of bike shops as well as doing these
For sure.
trips that, you were very passionate about the bicycle from a young age.
Totally.
And so then it kind of naturally led you into, I want to hang out at bike shops, I want to work at bike shops.
Yeah.
But it was many years of that before you decided, I want to open my own shop.
Totally, yeah.
Was that a dream that you had for a long time, or was this something that was kind of born out of the pandemic?
It feels like a product of circumstance. So yeah, like in high school, sophomore year, I had like a really uninspired English teacher. Like, sorry if they watch this. But it was sixth period. They were like not engaged. So to pass the time, my friend Robert and I planned like an imaginary camping trip to like Louisiana from Nashville down the Natchez Trace, which is this like amazing 450-mile highway that doesn't allow commercial traffic and no billboards. So it's like really aesthetic. And just we like chit-chatted about it all semester as a way to pass time. But then like as summer kind of got there, the details grew and grew and grew, and eventually we're like, oh, we should really do this. Robert and I met like the first day of sophomore year, and we both rode bikes a lot, which was, we were 2 out of the 3 people out of 2,000 in my high school that rode bikes, and the third was my twin brother. So I guess when we sat next to each other, that 6th period English class was like, oh, the thing we can talk about is bikes. And yeah, I like fell in love with it from that. We biked all the way down to the Mississippi-Louisiana border. It was this incredible experience, especially like, I feel like anyone can relate in high school. It's like really hard to feel like you have any autonomy. Like your parents have to drive you somewhere, or like you're just sitting around bored all day, you want to go do something. And then my brother, I guess, started riding my mom's bike around, and he would like ride it to our friends' houses. Well, I guess at first he was like jogging, which was sick. Like shout out to like jogging places in high school. Like he didn't run. It was just like as a way to get somewhere.
Yeah, a little bit faster.
Yeah, and then it was like, oh, light bulb. Like
skateboard speed almost.
Totally, like bike's gonna be faster. So it was really like this passion was kind of born from a need for transportation. And then we could like go around places in high school, and that was the raddest thing at the time. And then we like pushed it, and we're like, oh, we can go across states with this like tool. And then yeah, that was like the beginning of this like lifelong passion of like, I can build my whole life that I can around this idea of like using a bike for utility and for fun. And it's not like this thing, I feel like at least in the United States, everyone's like, my bike is my way of exercise. I don't at least feel like that much. I actually like run for exercise mostly and try and lift weights. But like for me, a bike is just a thing that I do to hang out with my friends most of the time and like go do rad stuff.
And to get around.
Yeah. So then, yeah, that like, that grew, kind of like that passion continued to grow. I worked at a bike shop in high school called Halcyon that was like really community focused. And then in college, I worked on the I worked in the bike shop on campus, and then ended up managing that bike shop. And I got a degree in, I got a BS in environmental science, thinking that I was gonna maybe work in a lab. I worked in a mycology lab on campus, and I don't know, I was maybe gonna go get a master's, but nothing ever clicked. I never wanted to work in the bike industry because it's a really challenging place to work. No one gets paid anything. For a million reasons, it's very challenging, but I just never could get out of it. And then eventually, after working at multiple bike nonprofits and multiple bike shops, I definitely, and being young and naive and just stupid, I was I could do this better. You know what I mean? So then I opened up my own shop with Matt Zing. We co-founded the organization in 2020, October of 2020, and we called it Two Bikes. With this idea that we're gonna give a bike away for everyone we sell. It was the two of two bikes. And it was we were bike scout all the time, it was two of us. Seemed like there was some and we couldn't come up with a better name, so.
Well, it's perfect.
It stuck. Yeah. We were always
two bikes, two shops now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that worked. That was not planned yet.
Initially, sure. Yeah. Right. How many months or years in it with the Knoxville shop did you decide, I think I want to start number 2?
For sure. So 0. Because I worked for a previous nonprofit called Dream Bikes that had 1 location. They had grown it to 7. So I'd seen them scale, and then they decided to shutter the whole nonprofit really suddenly. We were told that the whole thing was going to close in December and October. So they just turned the lights off on us. So I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder of being that maybe wasn't the right way to do that. It was just post George Floyd. We were working with an underserved and predominantly Black, providing jobs for young Black people primarily. And I was this seems not cool. And there's a huge demand for bicycles during the pandemic. It's we're doing all this good work. Why are you gonna close? But then again, because I was naive at the time, it's I'll just do it myself. But then with a huge amount of community support. I had this vision that if we could do it really well in Knoxville, then we could scale it. Not to make this giant organization, but to kind of plant these unique organizations in different cities. So actually, an interesting thing about both of the nonprofits is they're totally independent. So they both have their own EIN. They have their own 501c3, which means you can make a donation and it's tax deductible. So they have complete autonomy with one another. When I was working at Dream Bikes, I got pretty good at fundraising. But all of the money we were fundraising was going into one pot. So all 7 bike shops were operating off of one bank account. It was unclear where the money was going. So it would be really hard for me to sit down with you and ask you for $5 to help create a job for a local underserved youth. And they say is this money staying locally? I couldn't answer that. I would be maybe. So instead, I want to build these organizations that are totally autonomous, where if someone wants to open a Two Bikes in Louisville, eventually I'd love to be able to help them do that, but if they whiff it, then their organization will fall through and it's not going to affect Chattanooga, it's not going to affect Knoxville. Proportionally, if I do a really bad job launching Chattanooga and we run out of money, that's the Knoxville organization is going to be fine, and vice versa. So they're totally independent, strong, community-funded, community-supported organizations.
Yeah. Was there a point where, when you had just decided, okay, I think I want to start my own shop, starting out with, had you tried to start a business before that?
No, so
okay.
I did have some unique experiences. I was working at the previous nonprofit called Dream Bikes with Preston, who we both know. Preston started it as the, regional director, and then I was what you would call, I now have the language for program coordinator, where I was running the youth workforce development program. So I had 2 to 3 years of hands-on experience working with high schoolers, refurbishing bikes, learning what the programmatic aspect of the work looked like. And then Preston moved on at the time to work at Blue and Botanicals, and I was promoted to the regional director position. So then I started looking at the books and realized that we were not on a good path. We were losing a significant amount of money every year. So then I basically took a bunch of courses and read a bunch of books on nonprofit management and how to fundraise. And then our local organization would solve it within a year, which I was really proud of. It was not like, the budget was small, it was like $200,000 annually. But like I had this unique 5-year experience at Dream Bikes where I had done the programmatic side of the work, the like turning wrenches working with kids, and then the administrative work, running payroll, doing bookkeeping, working on fundraising, hosting like a big annual fundraiser type of thing. So I felt like equipped to launch my own organization because I had seen both sides of that work. I certainly, when you start doing it all yourself and you don't have the support of a massive multi-billion-dollar organization like Trek, who is the primary sponsor for Dream Bikes, like there was still a huge learning curve. But I was like, I had enough knowledge to be like dangerous and to have a false sense of confidence that I knew what I was doing, which I didn't. But we learned a lot since then.
Yeah, I think it's really impressive to go from working in a shop and gaining all this experience over time, and then deciding I think I could do this. And you say, oh, I was naive and stupid, but hey, it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think I'm not like, I don't think I have a magic piece of advice of like what kept us alive the whole time. I think that, but like Matt and I were both like incredibly passionate, and we like willed it to survive. But
well, there's something to be said for, I love stories of you almost said that you kind of fell into it in a way, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have all this prior experience and passions with different things surrounding bicycles.
Yeah.
And 15 years of that led you to here.
Yeah.
And of course, you took the necessary steps to do the right things to get the shops in place. But it's funny how that works out sometimes, right? Where it's almost like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now, and just momentum is kind of pulling you forward.
Yeah. And I think like if I was to say anything was my superpower, it's that I'm like pretty willing to ask for help. Or like, I guess over the years I've like learned that I really don't need to be great at everything. I just need to surround myself with like really smart people who are really skilled and know the answers. So it's like, I don't need to be an attorney, but I definitely need an attorney like on speed dial that I can call and be like, oh, like this is a awkward situation, or like this is, like I think an example of that is like, so we host these community group rides. Well, it turns out riding a bike on city streets is really dangerous. So like as the organization's grown and those rides have become more popular, we've had to like navigate a lot of like, we've had to navigate a lot of kind of like complex topics with like liability. Like what insurance policy do we need to carry? How do we acquire that? Like what does a waiver need to say? Do we need to have waivers? Like, so just having someone
requiring helmets.
Or do we require helmets? Yeah, which is a really complicated answer, actually. Yeah, there's a legal argument for requiring helmets and for not requiring helmets.
Yeah, because it's I guess it's a bit different than just saying, okay, me and Mitchell are friends. We're going to call up 10 of our friends and we're going to go on a group bike ride.
Yeah.
That's different than hosted by an organization and with a pre-planned route.
Yeah.
And then you have a couple people that maybe block off a road for the group, and there's a lead and there's a tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, there's like an organization that can be sued. Like if someone feels like we took them on a road that was kind of inherently dangerous and that there was an accident that occurred and we put them in that position and we made safety recommendations, which they followed, then we're starting to look pretty liable.
Yeah.
And what's worse is that it's not that our organization is liable, it's that our board of directors, our directors and officers can become liable in that situation. It's complicated. I think we figured out a lot of that stuff.
Sure, and then in so many of these routes, just speaking from experience in Knoxville, are a lot of routes that many cyclists in town ride over and over and over.
Yeah, for sure.
And then some of them, of course, are closer within the city, a lot slower traffic, that kind of thing. But I do think, I really appreciate the fact that there is levels of experience for these rides.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to do a slow group ride. It'll be maybe 10 miles. And then, on the flip side, you might have a more experienced ride that's going to go through the hills in South Knoxville that's 30 miles and, a 13-mile pace or something like that, right?
What I think has been like a learning experience for me is like using accurate and inclusive language around group rides. Like you could call something, I've learned to not call things like an advanced ride or a beginner ride, because you want to be inclusive with your language. Like one ride that could be really easy for one person, like could be a more advanced ride for another type of person. So we've kind of steered away from using that type of language. And now if you look, we describe everything, we just give them the facts. We're like, this is the type of surface you're gonna ride on, this is the speed that we're gonna be traveling, this is a drop or a no drop ride, which means that like, if you can't keep up, like you're gonna have to find your own way home. That would be considered a drop ride. Instead of being like, this is a beginner friendly ride, that's like a little bit more complicated, because maybe that ride's not like, maybe a really experienced cyclist is not a beginner, but that's still a challenging ride for them. So I think resources like the Radical Adventure Riders have published like a group ride guide that I think is really cool. And anyone that's like facilitating community events around bicycling, I would recommend like supporting that organization and like buying their resources, because it like helps us do a good job to make sure that everyone like feels welcome on our rides, basically.
Are there other maybe shops you've worked at in the past, or maybe just bike shops that you've established a relationship with that is, inspired you with Two Bikes? I mean, you talked about Dream Bikes as an example of, some of the things that you learned that were great things that to bring into Two Bikes, and then maybe some things that you learned what not to do.
Yeah, so there's a bicycle nonprofit called Bikeworks in Seattle that's kind of flagship for like an American nonprofit that does incredible work. Also, Boise Bicycle Project is incredible. I feel like I could rattle off a ton, but those are two. Okay. Those are two that I think are really incredible. And certainly, like I spent a long time kind of reading their annual reports and trying to figure out like what they're doing really well and why it's such a success, and trying to emulate them in a lot of ways.
So. I took a tour of the Knox Bike Shop. Well, no, I didn't take a tour of the Knox Bike Shop. I walked over there with my camera and shot some footage of it. Yeah. I've been over there many times, and the kind of the look and feel of the shop is very different.
Yeah.
Was that intentional, or just tell me a little bit about your thought process behind designing the two different spaces?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good question, and something that I love thinking about is it's like...
Because Mitchell designed every little aspect of this place, man.
Well, that with a lot of help from other people.
Of course.
So my friends Will and Tate run a local design build firm called Best Studio, and they did the build out, and we really they did such a good job. Like they went to Knoxville and like interviewed the whole staff there to like learn about like what's working really well, what's like not working really well. Like how we could improve that shop. And then like we spent hours meeting to like plan everything out. I guess the whole like vibe that we were going for is it's like Two Bikes is really built around this DIY ethos where we like build everything out of recycled materials. It's like this kind of community effort, and we wanted to articulate that with the kind of design language of the space. So like everything's built out of like 3/4 inch plywood that's like radiata pine. So it's not like a fancy material at all. But it's like designed in this like kind of elevated way that it feels like architectural and like very thoughtfully done. And that's like a kind of speaking to how we do everything. It's like all of the bikes, we're using these like recycled materials, but trying to like build them in this way that feels elevated, super practical, super well designed. And also like I come from like a design background. And then like we built like a custom sound system out of the same materials where it all just like blends in really seamlessly. And like smaller design decisions have carried across both. Like I get really frustrated when I go into some bike shops and I can't figure out who to talk to. Like you go in there and like everyone in the bike shop looks like they could work in the bike shop. You know, it's...
or they just rolled in off their bicycle and they're just hanging out.
Totally, like bike people, for better or for worse, there's like a look to like different, like especially like bike mechanics. And that I find really challenging and intimidating and not... It makes the experience more challenging for the user. So
what you've done with your staff is you require them to put grease like as a football eye paint.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Okay. Braveheart style. Yeah, full.
Oh yeah, because the two bikes blue paint, the signature blue color.
Yeah, common misconception, all based around Braveheart.
Yeah.
That's not true. But no, so we all wear these like staff aprons that say like 2 bikes staff. And it's just a way to like easily identify if the person works there or not. We also have some really passionate volunteers who maybe a little bit pretend like they work there. Is like a interesting problem we've run into. So we have a different color apron that says volunteer across the front. One that like helps them be identified as like having maybe some more knowledge than a civilian, but like maybe their recommendation is not the professional recommendation of the shop. But you just figure that stuff out as you go.
Well, that's a good problem to have. People like to hang out at your bike shops, and so
Yeah, totally.
they want to volunteer. Come on, man. We got a shirt for you or an apron. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm interested in the two bikes blue color because I remember when you
286 BAD. That's that hex key.
I remember when you first painted the storefront there.
Yeah.
And it just pops, man. And then you see that color, sprinkled throughout the whole shop.
Yeah, totally.
It's a very beautiful space.
Wait, I'll be back. I have a prop for this.
Yes, we need the prop.
Hold the phone. This is like the most pretentious sentence in my life. But like, I did this bike tour through southern France, and I got this like French mechanic's jacket. It looks like this. It's like the jacket that like plumbers wear in France, or like auto mechanics.
Yeah, you like these jackets with these sorts
of pockets.
Yeah, right.
And then this street photographer in New York, Bill Cunningham, wears them too. Rest in peace, the guy's the realist. But so it's like when I was in France, I was with my friend Clem, who was like couch surfed in Knoxville at my house, and she was like touring me through Paris at the time. And I was like, oh, I really want one of those like blue jackets that the mechanics wear. And she was like, that's not cool. That's not cool. You don't want that. I was like, no, that's super cool. So I like got one. And whenever I have friends that are like going through Europe, which is not that common, but I've like tried to get them to give me another one, like bring them back.
Yeah, start collecting them.
Yeah, exactly. So you know the expression like a blue collar job?
Yeah.
That's like a French expression. It's like referring to like that jacket. That's like the blue collar.
This is the original blue collar.
That's the OG blue collar.
Oh my God.
So the two bikes blue is like a riff on the color of like my favorite jacket.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm so
French
glad
mechanic.
I asked you this question.
Yeah. So yeah, and then it's really cool to work with architects designing this space because they liked the blue too. And they've like incorporated that blue in like everything. Like it's all over the place in the store, which I wouldn't have done. I would have just like bought regular milk crates. But they like freaking sourced cool blue milk crates and stuff. That's the whole thing is kind of like milk crate. That's like DIY object, but like in the right color. It's like elevated.
Yeah.
It's not like we're spending, like all this stuff is actually like super cheap, but we're trying to be super intentional and make it all feel cohesive. And even like, when we came in here, this was like a super grungy basement. Like, I like installed spent a ton of time wiring up all these lights. So it's like bright and kind of like welcoming in here.
Yeah.
Which was like a huge pain. But I think it makes such a big difference when you go into like a well-lit space. You're like, oh, like I could hang out in here.
Yeah. Yeah, and then at nighttime when the shop's closed and you crack a beer or two, then you dim the lights, throw on some mood lamps.
Yeah, we do keep Nag Champa incense burning here basically 24/7, which we also sell. I don't know what the price is. It's like going to be very cheap, but we've got a little on display.
That's where I usually get my incense. I go to bike shops.
Bike shops, yeah. Well, there's a cool there's a cool record shop in Knoxville. I think they may have closed, but Magnolia Records. And they had like a little like Nag Champa on display and they were burning it there. And I was like, tuck that away. That's cool.
Yeah. Borrow things from outside the bicycle industry.
Yeah, lifetime learner, man. Like whenever I see people doing things that I think are rad, I just like write it down in a little note or try and think to do it later.
So we have to talk about the most important thing, which is the bicycles.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me your philosophy on building bikes out of spare parts, recycled parts.
Oh man.
I mean, there's different phrases you could throw around to describe a two bikes bicycle, but you build beautiful things out of discarded parts.
Yeah. And
this is a passion of yours, right?
Yeah, I've been doing it for forever. Like, I think the first bike that I refurbished, I actually ended up selling the frame because I didn't finish it when I was like 15 or 16. And then I built a Cogswell frame up that actually my friend Dan welded me like a custom fork for, like when I was maybe 17. So then now I'm 31 going on 32. Dude, it's been a minute, but I've learned a lot. Like I do have like, I feel like I have some like philosophies. First, again, so like ground floor is that like we're building bikes that are not for racing or for mountain biking. They're for getting people places. Like a bike that you would see locked up outside of a college campus, or like a bike that you would feel comfortable just like riding to a coffee shop on. So like the first thing you have to do is make a bike that's comfortable to ride, which you can do in a couple of ways. Like we love like a higher volume tire like this. So this is like a 26 by 2.1. So you can run it at lower pressure, so it's less bumpy, right?
Yep. And if you got to ride on grass or gravel, you
doesn't matter.
Okay.
Go over the curb, doesn't matter. You're not like, oh, I hope I don't pinch fly. Doesn't matter. Yeah. If you don't fill up your tires every day, doesn't matter. You're like, yeah, fill them up when you think about it.
Yeah.
Two, it's all about like getting your handlebars high and closer towards you. So I think like a good rule of thumb is like to have your handlebars level with your saddle or like your seat. We love gatekeepy language in the cycling industry, so we call like seats saddles. Right. Very pretentious. But like having your saddle and your handlebars pretty close and then level. So like you call something called like drop. If you're imagining like your drop is a distance between your handlebar. We'll call this my handlebar and this is my saddle. If your handlebar gets low, then you have a more like tucked down aerodynamic riding position. Dude, sucks to ride that thing to the cafe. Like we don't care about aerodynamics. We're riding 2.5 miles.
Yeah, more upright, more comfortable, cozy.
Yeah, you can see better. You're not here. You're here. Just confidence inspiring.
So you're going to see less drop bars on these bicycles.
Yeah, and if you do see drop bars, they're going to be like pretty high. Like the top of the bar is going to be like hopefully at least level with the saddle. And then I would say like make a bike, like the brakes have to work really well. Like you always need to like replace the rubber on brake pads. And a lot of the time, like this bike, we don't have the front brake installed, but we love running linear pull brakes or V brakes. They have a great mechanical advantage. There's like, you can really lock the bike up pretty easily.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
More of a quick stop and less of like a slow rolling resistance to a stop.
Confidence inspiring. Yeah, you're like, I can stop the bike if I need to. And a lot of the time, we'll update the drivetrain from a more complex drivetrain to something that's a little more user-friendly or a little more simple. So we'll use what's called a one-by drivetrain, which means you have one chainring in the front, multiple gears in the back. So shifting, instead of being like, I'm in my second chainring and in my like fourth cog on my cassette or my freewheel, you can just be like, I need this to be easier, like easier or harder, just binary.
Right.
The byproduct of that is the bike ends up being more expensive because once you've replaced the drivetrain and the brake system, you're not gonna be able to sell it for $300 because you have $400 of parts in the bike. And we try to have a scale of like, we try and have bikes for $250 and we have bikes for $1,000. But we try and keep them like 500 to 700, somewhere in that range where we can price them low enough that they're accessible, but high enough that we can put really high quality parts on them that we're like confident in the bike.
Well, and I love that, what you said about less barrier to entry. Like if somebody is, new to cycling and just wants to get a bike to get around, or maybe they want to use it as their primary exercise thing. I mean, it's so nice to be able to walk in and not feel like you have to know about bicycles already.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can walk in and be like, I know nothing. And then you can ask the questions, well, what are you looking for? What do you want to do with this? What type of terrain are you going to take it on? Like, that's so nice, man, to just be able to walk in and say, I'm a newbie. What do you got for me? You know? And then like you said, with shifting, I feel like for new cyclists, that's a tough, learning curve. Yeah. Especially as like going quickly descending down a hill and right back up. It's a lot of shifting to make sure. Yeah, and with both hands. Whereas if you have a one by, it's just one side. Yeah. That's smart.
And we make like a lot of small design decisions. Like for example, all of the tags that are on bikes are color coordinated with the size of the bike from like extra small to extra large. So we'll ask someone their height, they'll be like, you're probably gonna fit on a size medium bike, so look for the orange tags. Any bike here with an orange tag is probably gonna be very close to fitting you. So it's all about making it easy for the customers, and because we employ high schoolers, like explaining bike fit is still challenging to me. Like it's
Yeah.
a complicated subject.
A lot of people don't realize that a frame is built for the certain height.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when we're working with a high schooler, we can be like, oh, they're 5'10", they're probably going to be a size large. Show them the bikes with the red tags. You know, making it easy for everyone's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can become a lifetime learner for bike fitting. It's complicated.
That's the number one training technique for what is it? Employee training is.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna learn how to fit bikes.
Yeah.
And you watch some old VHS tapes, like instructional videos.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's get some lasers going. But yeah, all about just trying to get people having fun on bikes. That's like this weird niche that I've accidentally devoted my life to.
It's so cool, man. You have a fun gig. It's inspiring to see a small local business pop up, crush it, move to a new market, try it again.
Yeah.
I don't want you to unveil all of your secret plans, but do you have? Are you thinking about a third city at this point?
I mean, I'm always thinking about stuff like that, but I'm 31 right now, and I've been like kind of pedal to the metal for the past like 5-ish years, like working really hard, and I'm trying to like
not only shops but your houses too.
yeah, for sure. Like I've been doing a lot, and I'm like
physically building everything,
building stuff. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out work-life balance a little bit more.
Yeah.
So my goal is to like find another person that wants to open the next 2 Bikes again as their own nonprofit. It'd be like 2 Bikes Louisville, whatever it is. And like I've built this like network. I have just so much infrastructure that I even have like a Google Drive called I forget what it's called, but it's like all of the paperwork that we use: opening procedure, closing procedure, like checklists for doing different styles of like repairs on bikes, like different repair packages that I'm like so ready to give to the next person. But my hope is to help empower someone with that knowledge and not do it necessarily myself. But I want to keep it in the Southeast. I would say like Nashville, Atlanta, Louisville, Memphis are like pretty high on the list of like, if someone reached out to me like, I really want to open a 2 Bikes in 2025, I would be like, I'd love to help. 2024, we're here. Maybe 2026, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, I think that this is a really good model. We generate a lot of revenue through commercial activity that supports the nonprofit. And then because we do that, it's very appealing for foundations to give us grants, because we're like, we don't really need your money. Like, we're fine. But if you give us money, we can hire more high schoolers. Like, that's a great value proposition for a regional foundation or a local foundation. And we've had great success there. So I believe it's a good model. I think we do the work really effectively. And I'd love to keep helping it grow.
Is there anything we want to cover? Anything we're missing?
That if you want to like learn more about 2 Bikes Knoxville or 2 Bikes Chattanooga, if you want to go on rides and you live in either of these places or you're traveling through, the Instagram handles are 2 Bikes Chattanooga and 2 Bikes Knoxville.
Yeah.
The website URL is 2bikes.org or 2bikeschattanooga.org. And don't go up and buy a bunch of domains that we might want one day. You know? don't buy 2 Bikes Atlanta and try and sell it to me for $5,000 because I won't buy it.
Yeah. There's ways around this.
Yeah. So yeah, if 2 Bikes Atlanta opens up and it's like .bz or something like that, know that was a troll. Somebody made us do that.
Yeah.
No. No, I think we're stoked.
Cool.
Trying to get enough bikes on the floor to open this thing in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Let's take a quick roam around the shop.
Yeah, for sure.
Mind. This channel will be focused more so on the types of like really interesting and awesome people I meet when I travel. But for now, I'm just getting started at home. So there might not be much of a travel vibe to this channel just yet, but that's coming. So if that interests you, subscribe, like, comment, do all those things that people do on YouTube, and stay tuned because I'm putting out new videos every single week.